I don't get why you British need Sourcery. Why is your sorcery so sour? Why is the sorcery so sour in England? Why would you have sour sorcery? Does it make your face go like this? At least in America, you have sorcery. It's sore. It got hurt. Okay, it makes for hurtings. Okay, sorcery. Flula Borg, anyone? Welcome to Shelf Centered. Thanks for entertaining my ridiculous attempts at humor. So here we go. Uh, that's where I went with this one. Hey, if you like stupid reviews and silliness, there's not like there's going to be tons of people watching this anyway. But please like and subscribe to Shelf Centered. It really helps the channel a ton and lets me grow and lets me, maybe one day this is all I'll do. Wouldn't that be great? It's a pipe dream, I know. But anyway, wanted to get into Sourcery, as I pronounce it, even though it's pretty sour. This is one of those Sourcery, and I kind of have to take a step back to jump right into this. With just Terry Pratchett in general. I know I've mentioned this in other videos that I love Terry Pratchett. What I'm doing is I'm reading through the series in publication order. I've heard some kind of later in the publication order get better and better, and so I figure, I just started at the beginning and I enjoyed those, and so why not start where it's supposedly weakest and move on from there, and I think it's working for me so far. So Sorcery is number 5. Technically, and as far as I can tell so far, other than the light fantastic, I think, and as I understand in my research, there are a couple of Pratchett books, of Discworld books, that you do have to read kind of in somewhat of an order, but I think for the most part, they're pretty standalone. And I can at least say it would help to have read a couple of the Rincewind books, the Color of Magic, which is the first Discworld book, and the Light Fantastic, which is the second before this, because you'd know a little bit about Rincewind, the bumbling wizard, with his, in this book, his luggage. And if you know the luggage, anyway, I hate being that kind of person. But anyway, that's one of those that you would at least get a sense of why the heck he's got this luggage with a bajillion legs or feet pattering along and following him everywhere. But other than that, there really is no need to have read anything else. So Sourcery, this is one of those that I could not help myself but quote. It is so quotable. Anyone done this? I go through rabbit holes of, I could read quotes, just great quotes for days. That is one of my favorite things. I love quoting them. I love quoting great quotes. From Oscar Wilde to Terry Pratchett here, to Joe Abercrombie's a good one to quote. And so I just start listing these, but I remember reading this going, oh my gosh, this is like half of the quotes that I've enjoyed and liked on Goodreads for Terry Pratchett. So a couple of those, I mean, just right from from the beginning of this book, what we have is essentially a sorcerer, because that's what this is about, is an eighth son of an eighth son of an eighth son. So a wizard squared. And what's funny is, and the book plays with the fact that wizards are supposed to be celibate, not supposed to procreate, though they are allowed to have mothers and fathers. And nobody questions this at all. It is also Discworld. So it's satirical. Discworld is it's brilliant if you like Douglas Adams, what Douglas Adams did for science fiction, that's what Terry Pratchett's done for fantasy. And it's just brilliant. There's so many great quotes in this, but it's just so funny. It is this magical world here in Discworld. Since this is my first Discworld video, I guess I can explain kind of the whole thing. Discworld is a flat disc of a world that sits atop 5 elephants that then are on top of a huge turtle, and it's all flying through space What happens to the water, you ask, on this Discworld? It just mists out over the disc. Anyway, it's complete nonsense, and that's the beauty of this, is Terry Pratchett can explore all kinds of fun things. And so in this one, we revisit, as I said, Rincewind. There is suddenly a sorcerer around, and Rincewind somehow it goes on this bumbling adventure, as he always does. He never chooses to face danger or go on adventures, but he is often pulled into them just because of who he is. He's a wizard, but he's terrible at it. As one quote says here, and this will not be the last, I'm sorry. To call his understanding of magical theory abysmal is to leave no suitable word to describe his grasp of its practice. It's so great. And those are things that I'm like, I need to remember that in case someone just needs a really good zinger when I make fun of them, which I always do because I'm a terrible person. I don't know. It seems like you could have that in your back pocket. I probably would never use it, but I think that'd be funny. With sorcery, this sorcerer comes, and there shouldn't be a sorcerer. The last time it almost wrecked and destroyed the whole world that there was a sorcerer, so that's why there's been all these rules put in place for wizard kind to not have sorcerers, and of course there's a sorcerer that comes in. And so Rincewind gets pulled on this kind of bumbling adventure, as he does, and we follow that. We follow Kanina. I was back and forth on that pronunciation. The actual daughter of the barbarian, and so she can't, it's in her blood, she literally can't help but be a barbarian herself and go on adventures and whatnot. And so you meet this just great cast of characters. You have the wizards themselves that have become very pompous in wizarding, and then suddenly they're convinced by this new sorcerer that kind of just sets himself up to run the wizarding school and kind of be in charge of all wizards. And by the way, he's 10 years old. And the way this all starts out is that there is this wizard, right? This wizard that he wants to defy death. And one thing we find out is that wizards can actually see death. When death has come to take them, they can see death. And death is a character. There's actually the previous book to this, Mort, deals a lot with death as a character, and it's a great character. It's a wonderful book, and I love when death appears, and you'll see why, because he pretty much is the embodiment of some of the best quotes in all of Discworld, and you can fight me on that. I'm only 5 books in though, so I guess I wouldn't win. So you have this initial wizard, and we're talking the first couple pages, and there's just quote after quote, and I want to walk you through it just to be able to quote this, and so this is where we're at. But this wizard wants to kind of cheat death, and so his way of doing that is, so we meet death, and we hear this quote: "Despite rumor, death isn't cruel, merely terribly, terribly good at his job." And so this wizard's trying to reason with death. He's trying to go, I see how he can get out of this. And he goes, and what would humans be without love? Rare, said death. Anyway, and this one, because again, he's trying to find any kind of loophole or whatever, this wizard to dying. He doesn't want to die. He has a son. He wants to see his son grow into power. And this spoke to my lawyer heart. Anything that makes fun of a lawyer is great. So death, nothing is final, nothing is absolute, except me, of course. Such tinkering with destiny could mean the downfall of the world. There must be a chance, however small. The lawyers of fate demand a loophole in every prophecy. Anyway, then... So again, his name is Ipslor. He's this wizard. He's trying to deal with death, and he says, "What is there in the world that truly makes living worthwhile?" Death thought about it. "Cats," he said eventually. "Cats are nice." So it continues to go on, and I'll Pratchett, I think the best thing about Pratchett, because I think I've explained the plot enough that you need to know it's really, for me, not about the plot. but just the way he has with words. And so you do see a little bit of a way that he goes about it, but because there's a couple kind of similar quotes that I pulled out. But one of the things, you know, he does, there's a lot of footnotes in, at least this book, there were a ton of footnotes. And so you see here, we've got the footnotes, and, you know, one of them, it just kind of, hey, it mentioned what's called the vermine. And it says, the vermine is a small black and white relative of the lemming, found in the cold hublandish regions. And if you know, direction is always measured by either hub word or rim word. Rim being the outer and hub being into the center of the disc. Its skin is rare and highly valued, especially by the vermine itself. So I just love, it's just, there's another quote kind of like this that I found, and where Rincewind is talking with, and he's trying to, again, get out of some kind of crazy situation, and the girl that he's going around with, Konina, who pulls him into this adventure. She goes, "Quick, you must come with me," she said. "You're in great danger." "Why?" "Because I will kill you if you don't." just you know, these typical things that you hear, it's, you know, typical idiom. He likes to just spin them on their head, and that's where we come to the table here. "I'm not going to ride on a magic carpet," he hissed. "I'm afraid of grounds." "You mean heights," said Kanina, "and stop being silly." "I know what I mean. It's the grounds that kill you." Anyway, it's so great. I had to read that. Literally, I stopped. And this is why it takes me a while to, other than my other issues, it takes me a while to read a Pratchett book, because I'm either trying to quote it, I took pictures and I would post them in my notes, or quote them on Goodreads, or quote them on Twitter, wherever it may be, or I'm reading them to people in my family, my kids, or whatever. Lots of great, great nonsense. I love it. I can't get enough. I think I've been warning you, I probably just make this review about quotes, because I love the quotes in Discworld. You got it. If you're not reading Discworld, read it. I hope someone actually watches this video. This is a series that even the first 5 books are wonderful and great. I think this isn't my favorite of the first 5. It's probably a solid 7 out of 10, I'll go with. So far I love the witches. They've been my favorite, and I want to get more of the witches, which, by the way, the next book is the Weird Sisters, so I'm looking forward to that, although that might be the Fates. So anyway, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, please like and subscribe. I hope this wasn't too disjointed of a review. I love Terry Pratchett. You should too. And I will catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.